the very early forms of science fiction we were looking at last week. We have people travelling to the moon in both Wells and Verne, and we have in Wells people coming from Mars, but we don't have people really exploring space. So that's a massive area that is thematized and dealt with in this kind of period of science fiction. Okay, yeah, so space travel. And what does space travel mean? What kind of things happen in space travel in that sort of a narrative? What's it parodying?
In the beginning, like when the Cold War begins, it was like the race who would be first on space, on the moon, because of the rocket development during the war. So
yeah, so space travel is highly politicized, and so fantasies of space travel are politicized in sort of social reality, and they're politicized in terms of fantasy. Well, and where is this guy from, this alien that they meet?
From Red Planet.
He's from the Red Planet. You know, that's not a thinly veiled assertion. There are a lot of anxieties about, well, what does he represent? Because he's another trope of popular culture, of golden age science fiction popular culture. His name is, I think is it Marvin? So he's from the Red Planet, which we've already seen in Wells, and we see it in the Selenites of Wells in his first Men in the Moon. We see it in the War of the Worlds. But what is he?
Communism?
Yeah, there's a general, I think this idea of the Red Planet of Mars that kind of comes up again and again in this period of science fiction. But he's an alien, so he's just a pure other. He could be a communist, he could be anything else. And the alien becomes a dominant trope in Golden Age science fiction that appears, that wasn't there before, that was something dealt with very, very specifically. It becomes something very, very general. So we've got space travel, we've got aliens. What else do we see in that film?
Modern warfare, there is all these new weapons, new technologies.
We had technology. I mean, that's both things that I guess I was looking for. Technology is fetishized all the way through and parodied, from the evaporators that he transports to the giant eye, watching him. Everything, this whole future world is one of kind of ridiculous fetishization and investment in technology, where technologists seem to solve all our problems. Now, if we think of that in a sort of contemporary context of the 1950s in the United States, what does that relate to? This kind of...
The invention of like a microwave and nuclear weaponry and stuff like that.
Okay, so you've got nuclear weaponry, which is one thing. So the other thing about all of that is war. So it's conflict and war. But if we just think about technology, if we think about it at home, like the microwave as in the microwave oven.
Things to make our lives easier.
Yeah, everyone, but let's say middle class could afford to have like television, all this, kitchen improvements for the ladies at home. You don't need to do everything by yourself. The television, radio, telephones were,
So let's think about the state of the economy in the United States before the Second World War and after the Second World War. Generally speaking, what was the state of the economy in the United States before the Second World War?
After the great, they had like this economical crisis, yeah? From the beginning of 21.
So 1929 is the crash. And the 1930s are really tough times for the United States. The economy is ruined. Millions of people are living on, breadline kind of poverty. It's a very sort of bad time for the country economically. After the Second World War, when it becomes this sort of industrial superpower, the economy is suddenly reinvigorated. And how does that manifest itself? What new form does that take? We hadn't really seen anything like that before. I mean, you kind of hinted at that already. But how do we describe that new form that the American economy takes in the 1950s? It's what we live with. It's our world now. It's consumerism. It's the idea of buying stuff is good. It's good for you, it's good for your family, it's good for the country, it's good for the economy. And the American markets are flooded with new goods, and a lot of those new goods are new technological inventions. So all this stuff about sort of labour-saving devices that was already mentioned is part of a massive new consumer economy that emerges in the 1950s. So home ownership goes up, the buildings of new homes go up, lots of people have new homes to live in, lots of suburbs are built outside of the cities, and people have lifestyle aspirations that they fill with washing machines and television sets and new things that, I mean, what's life like in Britain in the 1950s?
Like in whole Europe after the war, we were dependent on the production of states. That's why they have like this economical boom, because Europe buy everything like from states.
What's the physical condition of London, like most of Europe?
Destroyed.
Yeah, it's a smouldering ruin, basically. It's a pile of rubble. If you walk down the street here, you would just be walking amongst bomb craters. Look at the facade of Tate. It's incredibly badly damaged, and these are lucky buildings. You know, London is a smouldering ruin. Most of Europe is a smouldering ruin, while America is rebuilding itself.
Wasn't there more of like in the UK anyway, like this idea of like community and kind of like rebuilding yourself as a community, whereas in the States it was kind of like, you know, you're kind of in it for yourself and you want to like succeed.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a very interesting thing that happens after the war, which is a kind of a socialist government, the introduction of the National Health Service, of things like national insurance. The idea of, you know, the state of society rebuilding itself doesn't last very long, but it has enough of a legacy that we still have some of those advantages today. But yeah, something great happens coming out of that. But we have rationing in this country until I think 1956. You could not go to a shop and buy food. You had to wait for your ration book, and then you take it to the shop and can say, I'm allowed 1 pint of milk, can I have it please? You know, so rationing until the mid-50s. So when this is going on in America and everyone's buying new washing machines, we've got ration books. And you know, we're really economically, socially ruined as a country. So things like televisions, all these things start to come in much, much slower, but the United States is the sort of powerhouse of this. So that's part of this kind of technological imaginary of new goods and new things. And of course, the other thing is war and weapons. A lot of this technology is weaponry. That's what brought about this kind of change in American society, was the war, was the industrialization of the production of weaponry, and becoming this new superpower. Just another interesting thing that we see starting to emerge is, you know, what is Daffy Duck in this film? What's he parodying? What's his role? Because it's not like Vashti and her son in The Machine Stops, is it?
Claiming a planet.
Hmm?
To claim a new planet.
He's claiming a planet in this very colonialist way.